So Bhante, I'm struggling with overwhelming anxiety. I've been attempting to disassociate from it via anatta practice, but it seems to be intensifying instead. What could I be doing incorrectly in managing this?
When it comes to anxiety, really it's a symptom of a problem. It's a symptom of a untamed mind, that it's kind of becoming self-aware, let's put it that way. Like, the mind that's refusing to give up sense of control, refusing to give up dependence on pleasure, but then the world is showing it that it's not in control and that the pleasures are unsatisfactory. So basically that discrepancy you start to feel as an anxiety. So really the only kind of lasting way that you could regain the control of the anxious mind is through keeping the precepts and sense restraint until the mind calms down. So basically, anxiety will be the result of you, say, either circumstances revealing you the lack of control, or you yourself through imposing precepts and sense restraint that in and of itself would upset the mind, the wild animal that hasn't been tamed. And then the anxiety would be its irrational attempt to basically to just cause you pain, to scare you, so that you go back to the old ways of knowing how to deal with pain, which is proliferating further into the sensual pleasures. But if you don't give in, if you don't go against the precepts, and you don't lose the sense restraint, anxiety will lessen, will come down. The mind will stop resisting. Because basically, the reason why the mind is anxious is because it used to wander around in all these unchecked pastures, sights, sounds, smell, taste, touches. And when that is threatened, through like recognition of sickness, aging, and death, it starts to feel anxious because it knows nothing else. It knows no other escape from its own discomfort. So the point is, you don't want to wait until the circumstances reveal that lack of control and then make you experience that anxiety, because then it will be too late. You want to already set that up through sense restraint and prevent the mind from going there. Let it kick and scream. It will have to calm down. And when it comes down, see, even if it doesn't want to, even if it doesn't want to give up the anxiety will lessen, because the factual discrepancy of what you assume to be yours and your pastures and what actually isn't yours and it isn't your pastures, that will disappear, because you already started refraining that mind from going in those directions and eating what it wants and other people's crops and the similes in the suttas. So then even if the mind is not necessarily thinking about anxiety, it won't experience as much, because that factual existential discrepancy of taking what it isn't yours, establishing yourself upon things that are not in your control, that has lessened. So then that lack of control, when experienced or perceived or remembered, cannot undermine you, because you're not standing there on top of it.
Because this person's saying they're practicing anatta.
Well, see, they are practicing their ideas of Buddhism or Dhamma in response to anxiety they want to get rid of. But I'm saying is, if you have anxiety, means the mind is still not tamed. And you don't tame the mind by introducing theoretical ideas of anatta and other contemplations. You tame the mind by reviewing your behavior and intentional actions throughout the day. So do you keep the precepts? Are you celibate? Keep the 5 precepts with celibacy. Do you do that? Are you containing mind within that? Or are you still kind of, acting like a householder, then experiencing anxiety on account of this or that, and then trying to use the Dhamma to manage that anxiety? And that's not going to work. Because as I said, you're attacking a symptom, thinking that's really the problem in itself. But it's not. The problem is that the mind is still not tamed nor contained properly.
You are still acting. You're still taking those domains which are not yours.
Most likely, it will be impossible for you to be established in virtue, sense restraint, not going into the other pastures of sensuality that don't belong to you, contain your mind and experience anxiety. That would be impossible. So if there is anxiety, it's because you are still going out onto the fields and pastures that are not yours. And immediately see, like imagine you are roaming around someone else's property and you become self-aware of that. First thing you're going to experience is going to be fear and anxiety. Ooh, what if the owner spots me? What if there is a trap? What if I'm being recorded? What if somebody finds this out? What do? I pretend that this is all mine. I ignore that somebody else owns this until it's too late. Now, if you don't pretend, you recognize. So if there is anxiety, it's because you're still standing on someone else's land.
So I got a sutta, what you just said reminds me of, and there's simile of, it says bhikkhus, the Buddha says, bhikkhus, in the Himalayas, the king of mountains, there are rugged and uneven zones where neither monkeys nor humans can go. There are rugged, uneven zones where monkeys can go, but not human beings. There are delightful regions where both monkeys and humans can go. There, along the monkey trails, hunters set out traps for catching monkeys. It says those monkeys who are not foolish and frivolous, when they see the trap, avoid it from afar. But a monkey who is foolish approaches the trap and seizes it with his hand. He gets caught there. Thinking, I will free my hand, he seizes it with another hand. He gets caught there.
Yeah.
I will free both my hands. He seizes it with his foot. He gets caught there. Thinking, I will free both my hands and my foot. He seizes it with his other foot. He gets caught there. Thinking, I will free both hands and feet. He applies his mouth to it. He gets caught there.
Called by the five.
Yeah, so the monkey trapped at 5 points lies there screeching. He has met with calamity and disaster, and the hunter can do with him as he wishes.
Yeah.
So, and it says, so it is because when one strays outside one's own resort into the domain of others.
Yeah.
That's what will happen.
And that's like that might be hard to accept. Like, for an untrained mind that has not established itself in virtue, that hasn't gained the right view, telling them that the anxiety, that's kind of quite an unpleasant phenomenon to experience, that's the result of certain seemingly insignificant actions, that would kind of require faith initially to accept. Or if you invest some decent reasoning, you would see that it's not a far-fetched idea. But either way, you're not going to see it immediately because you are very much deep into the pastures that don't belong to you. So you need to start recognizing signs and tokens that point out, that connect to your anxiety as a result of it, and that's how you get to understand and discern for yourself. But initially it might be like, I don't see the connection between my currently oppressing anxiety and the fact that I sometimes say what I want or eat what I want or kind of there is no connection between the two, because again, like you are proliferated so far into those pastures that you don't even really see the extent of it, and you don't see the depth of that kind of discrepancy, of that exposure. So you need to start restraining first in order for these things to become apparent. And same, you might actually make perfect sense out of it intellectually, but if you are not restraining yourself physically and actually applying that effort, it's going to remain on the level of theory, which means you're still going to be liable to anxiety. That's why fundamentally, somebody who has practiced towards arahantship and is completely purified from any discrepancy, he's fearless. No fear, no anxiety can arise in him on account of anything. Not because he wants it that way. It's just because practice has resulted in it through withdrawing and giving up anything that doesn't belong to you. So there is no more discrepancy for anxiety and fear to arise. So it's like a result of right giving up. So if you ask yourself, then I have anxiety, so what do I need to give up? Well, you start with the precepts. Do you keep the precepts like as your mode of being, as your day-to-day behavior? Or is it an occasional thing that's negotiable, every now and then? Have you taken the real practice of watching your intentions, not going against the principles of virtue, not acting, not saying by body, by speech, anything unwholesome? Then do you guard your sense doors from proliferating into sensuality? Are you taming it and containing it? If so, you probably wouldn't have to do it for that long, maybe a year or so, and you would pretty much go beyond anxiety. Not in that sense of an arahant, but you would get much better perspective on what it is. You will not be as overwhelmed. Like a Sotapanna, for example, can experience anxiety, it's just like one of the fetters, but he can't lose perspective on account of it. Not entirely, at least, because he sees it for what it is. But somebody with an untrained mind, a mind that's still not contained and seen rightly, yeah, anxiety just turns everything upside down completely. You can't even fathom any other action in regard to it except getting rid of it now. And that's why it's scary and unpleasant. But if you would have trained yourself beforehand, even that attitude of, I need to get rid of this right now, you would be able to contain it and not act out of it. But if you have not been practicing containing yourself, you will have no means to establish your mind on that level.